Kennecott was the eastern United States planted right into the middle of the Alaskan territorial wilderness. They brought in electricity, they brought in running water, they brought in steam heat into Kennecott. They brought in creature comforts that had never existed before. 1910 until 1938, an entire small civilization existed on the south slopes of the Wrangell Range. Kennecott came into existence because of a demand for copper. At the time, it's what energized America. We needed copper wire, millions of miles of copper wire.
We were just starting electricity and telephones, in the early 1900s, so there was a lot of demand for copper. They saw what they thought were green fields up there on the mountain above the current mill, and it turned out it was outcroppings of pure copper. And this was extremely rich copper, so it was a big deal. Basically started the interior of Alaska, put them on the map.
The town of Kennecott was a really prolific copper mine, actually. They ended up with 600,000 tons of finished metal. The effective years were from 1911 through 1938. This is definitely a really remote location. The challenges of building and operating a mine out here seem really tremendous, even from a modern perspective, much less 100 years ago. This location was vital, though.
Just the nature of mining, it's just simply a harsh existence. The men lived in barracks up at the mines. They would rarely have a chance to come off of those for often weeks and months at a time. They were just there working. The mines that served the mill at Kennecott were right at the freezing temperature all the time. They were relatively safe, but they were mines. You were working underground every day, 7 days a week, week after week, month after month. The typical shift was 10 hours. Although conditions were noted as being harsh up in the mines relative to other mines almost anywhere in Alaska and a lot of places stateside, they were relatively good because Kennecott ran a fairly safe, efficient operation.
Erie mine sits way up on top of the mountains there, and the Erie miners, they would shovel coal in the daytime and they had weightlifting up there at night. So these guys had arms like our legs, and these guys were some hardy people, so they lived up there on the edge of that glacier, and very few times did they ever come down into Kennecott itself. At the time when the mill was going at full speed, there was like 1,800 people here, so it was one of the highest populated areas in the entire northern sector, to include Canada too. It was a bustling community for sure.
There's a lot of hardships involved in working in a mine like that. It wasn't a safe place to work, right? But they had a nice community there, and a lot of the people that lived there, they had big social events and ice skated in the winter.
This was the recreation hall for the workers. Notably, they would have dances here too. Although given the preponderance of single male miners to very few single female teachers and nurses, it's probably pretty awkward dances with a definite shortage of female partners.
In reading the interviews of people that had actually lived at Kennecott in the 1920s, a lot of them actually said that the best years of their life was living in Kennecott. 1976, brought in a new group of people, what I call the early hippie commune. It was just a place to escape to. There was no work out there or anything, but if people wanted a remote existence, they got one out there.
There was only one cable across the river here, and it was a very small basket, about that big. So you had to make your way over to that basket and throw your legs up on it, and then get on that basket and go across, and then I would push it back, and obviously it made it inaccessible to get in here. But we went up to Kennecott, and we had the entire complex to ourselves, and it was a completely different place at that time. There wasn't anybody here.
We came down here, and man, when you get to the end of the road and look at that ice fall and all that, it's like, wow. And yeah, I decided to hang out here for a while and ended up buying property and staying for 40 plus years.
Living out here is an adventure. Everything's in its natural state here. There's no rat race. I forget what day of the month it is. I don't care when I'm out here. You're just living.
You know, you're close to God. It's hard to deny God when you're living in the middle of the wilderness in Alaska.
History is not considered very important anymore. It's kind of downgraded, but it's the context of what we are. The real America that we know today had its roots with the Industrial Revolution, and Kennecott represents a part of that.